All right, man, let's go Washington Commanders with the win over the Eagles. Impressive comeback win, 36-33. Late touchdown from Jayden Daniels to Jamison Crowder for the game winner. Eagles were up 27-14 at the start of the fourth quarter. Commanders kept fighting back. Also, Commanders overcame 5 turnovers to get this win. Just a wild win for the Commanders, who moved to 10-5. Eagles fall to 12-3 and fall a game back for that number 1 seed in the NFC.
There you go. Tweet from Mitchell Tischler. Commanders are the first team to win a game scoring 35 or more points whilst turning it over 5 times since 2010. So that is, 5 turnovers against the 1 seed, a team that's capable of earning the 1 seed or in the hunt for the 1 seed with the number 1 defense in the NFL heading into this game is nuts. I mean, that should have precluded them from winning this game. And yet, okay, Kenny Pickett coming in for Jalen Hurts, who takes off in a scramble, goes to ground, gets his head smacked, and then gets sent to be evaluated, doesn't come back. Obviously, that's a huge part of what the Eagles are capable of doing. But they hung a ton of points against the number 1 defense in the NFL and a ton of yardage as well. It's not like it was empty points that was set up by turnovers or whatever. I mean, they put 400 yards on what is arguably the best defense in the NFL.
They did. Look, I mean, there's going to be some luck that goes your way, too. I'll talk about that in a second. But, I mean, Jayden Daniels and what he did in this game, it wasn't one of those games where you go back and it's like, oh, he didn't miss a throw. He was pristine. Obviously, there were some bad ones in there. Early interception that he missed and a late interception, which was maybe his worst decision, right? You're making a comeback attempt, forces one up. Ed Reed, Blankenship, always in the right place at the right time. He picks it off. It looks like the game-sealing interception for the Eagles. Eagles go down. They have a 3rd and 6. Pickett hits Devonta Smith wide open over the middle. That literally would have ended the game. He drops it, sure-handed Devonta Smith. Eagles settle for a field goal to go up 5. Commanders drive down and get the win. But I wanted to highlight some of the bad from Jayden Daniels just to set up the good, because obviously there's the game-winning touchdown, which was outstanding. If you look at the anticipation that he threw, it looks like wide open on broadcast, but he is throwing early into a spot, reading it out to Jamison Crowder. He had that one drive where they went 96 yards, big-time throw to De'Ami Brown out of the end zone, big-time throw to Terry McLaurin for a touchdown, scrambled on 4th and 4 to convert the 3rd down, and then the other scramble when they were down 13 points, and it's 4th and 11, and Jayden Daniels has the long scramble weaving through the Eagles defense. Just some unbelievable high-leverage clutch plays from Jayden Daniels in this game.
The 4th and 11 scramble was so big. See, this is the other thing. Like, they also had a turnover on downs in this game. Like, they had 6 total turnovers, technically, if you give them that 4th down one as well. The 4th and 11 play was absolutely crucial to that comeback. I think it's a good thing to point out, because, like, coming out of this game, it's like, oh, look at Jayden Daniels, what he did at the end of the game against the number 1 defense in the NFL. Rookie of the year, wrapped up. Like Dan Orlovsky's firing off the tweet, presumably. Wrap it up. It's done. It's in the books. You're like, okay, but the drive before, which was his, can you take the lead on this drive, the game-winning attempt, he was awful. Like he missed on everything on that drive and then turned the ball over. And if Devonta Smith catches that football, the last thing we saw from Jayden Daniels in this game would have been absolutely melting down in the crunch situation. He gets a mulligan because Devonta Smith doesn't catch that football. He gets to do it over again. And on that drive, Kirk Cousins, that drive, he's perfect. Like on that drive, he's fantastic. So what do you do with that from an analysis standpoint? I think you have to factor it in and say he basically had 2 shots at that game-winning drive, right? The first one was terrible and he missed. The second one, he was great and he hit it, right? But that's not the same as he had 1 shot and he hit it. He had 2 shots and he was 500 on them. Like that's, I think, a relevant part of this analysis.
It's the worst part about being logical analysts like you and I, Sam. It's just the worst part is that we have to not buy into all the fun and the hype. It doesn't take away from how good Jayden Daniels is. We dealt with this in early Andrew Luck years, right? We would be like, Andrew Luck had this knack for making 4th quarter comebacks. He had a special level of aggressiveness to him, throwing the ball down the field. He could make special throws. Luck never became that game manager type that I think people almost pictured coming out, never going to make mistakes. He's going to be this, Peyton Manning, perfect elite quarterback. He was more Favrean, right? It's like you always said, created a fire and then put it out himself. This was more that type of game for Jayden Daniels, right? Where the way I view it is we got an opportunity to see him bounce back from, what should have been a game-bending interception. So the same thing I said about Bryce Young earlier, you get the opportunity to see them bounce back from adversity. A Dan-O or former quarterback, they love that, right? Because that's a huge part of the position. And I would just say the big playability of Jayden Daniels. I think he has been incredibly efficient this year, underneath stuff, timely scrambles, whatever it might be. But then you have flip the field, downfield ability, his scrambling ability, which I think he just has a great knack for when to take off, how to navigate in the open field, as we saw in a couple of those scrambles. I think that's what this highlighted, right? Was the amnesia against a great defense. It's never going to be perfect, rarely going to be perfect. And you had this, it was a lucky opportunity to have another time to go for the game-winning touchdown. 9 plays, 57 yards, including that game winner to Crowder. So that's how I view it. I try, there's a balance between Jayden Daniels is the greatest thing we've ever seen, perfect game. And look, he got an extra opportunity, but he made do. And they scored 3 touchdowns in his last 4 drives.
Yeah, I don't want to be too negative on Jayden Daniels because he was really impressive in this game. And overall, he's been fantastic. The key plays in the game that were necessary to win, he made, right? It's just that he also made some that should have cost him the game. I was laughing because, I just said, look, Dan-O presumably has given him Rookie of the Year already. Right? Literally, as I'm doing that, there's a tweet where ESPN has a Dan-O clip where he says Jayden Daniels was the best player in the NFL this weekend. He is unflappable. So Dan-O doesn't remember the drive where he threw it away, only remembers the drive where he got it done, even though that one actually required a Philadelphia error to get the opportunity again.
I always try to put myself in their shoes. They just, especially former players, I think they see it differently. Like the big part, he bounced back from adversity. Like they weigh that extremely high. You and I are just, we were molded to care about every play, to not care about the narrative as much, to not care about the touchy-feely stuff. I think both things can be true. I wouldn't go so far to say he was the best player in the NFL when it took Devonta Smith dropping a wide open 3rd down to completely change your perception of him. But great job by Jayden Daniels. The Zacchaeus touchdown too. 12 men on the field, busted coverage, wide open for a 49-yard touchdown. There was some plays that went Washington's way in this one.
I mean, look, he made some really big plays. And again, I don't want to be too negative because him being able to have the performance that he had overall against the league's #1 defense and execute the comeback after having just screwed it up was a really important big boy moment. Like he did play really well. To say he was the best player in the NFL this weekend, I think is ridiculous. I mean, even if you limit it to quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson was better. Bryce Young was better. He wasn't the best player in the NFL this weekend. And again, I cannot emphasize enough, if Devonta Smith, a guy on the other side of the ball, catches a easy pass right into his hands, the last thing we saw from Jayden Daniels would have been a drive to win the game where he absolutely imploded and turned the ball over. Are you saying, if you are saying the same thing at that point, he's still the best player in the NFL this weekend, then we can have a conversation. If that changes your analysis, then what are we doing here?
Daniels finishes with 5 touchdown passes, 258 yards through the air, another 81 on the ground, including, like we talked about earlier, the 29-yard awesome scramble on 4th and 11. I get it. Jayden Daniels, those are the types of special moments, I think, also not so much in a play-by-play evaluation of this, but the star power that he shows going forward for Washington, should be absolutely thrilled about. I mean, at the end of the day, too, it's like that the game winner where he's anticipating and throwing to a spot, that might have been as impressive as anything to me. Yeah. So there was a lot of good stuff in there from Daniels. And then you can't talk about the Eagles without mentioning, once again, Jalen Hurts goes out with a concussion pretty early on. He's got 3 carries for 41 yards, goes 1 for 4 for 11 through the air, but he's hurt early. Kenny Pickett almost immediately throws a quick touchdown and then an interception to Frankie Louvu. So the good and the bad right away, but clearly they were limited. And after Saquon Barkley rattled off a 68-yard touchdown, and people are like, oh, rejuvenate, resuscitate the Barkley MVP case. The Commanders said not for the rest of the game. It was a whole bunch of 1 and 2 and 3 yard carries for Barkley. They held him in check after the 68-yarder. And so the Eagles became, much more one-dimensional with Pickett under center.
One of those farcical, aggregator accounts on Twitter was like, this is unbelievable. Saquon Barkley is he's got 100 and something yards in the first quarter. He's on pace for the 400 yards in the game, for 2,500 yards in the season. Like blah blah blah. And you're like, what is this? Like it's
block button. Block button, so you don't see it.
He had 109 yards in the first quarter and only 150 and 150 for the game overall. Like, yeah, they gave up a big play early, and it's like, here's MVP Saquon again. But they did at least slow that down or stop that happening over the course of the game. The other thing we got in this game is I feel like Marshon Lattimore against A.J. Brown is going to be the new Marshon Lattimore against Mike Evans. This was the first one-on-one battle that those guys had. It was an extensive one-on-one battle. Like they let the two of them go against each other for a lot of the game. And it was a classic Lattimore versus Evans game, right? Lattimore had 4 forced incompletions. On the other hand, he also gave up at least 3 penalties by being way too physical. I love the one-on-one matchups that Lattimore gets into against physical receivers is awesome to watch.
I just love those matchups generally, even if there's not a winner, right? It's not like this guy beat that guy. It's just, it was both, right? It was back and forth. They both had their wins. And I do love those matchups. Lattimore ends up leaving with a hamstring injury. We'll see what happens with him.
By the way, the Washington defense probably doesn't get enough credit. So we're all focusing on Kenny Pickett. There was a 3rd and 2 play where Lattimore breaks it up late in the down. Kenny Pickett got it to A.J. Brown, and then Lattimore, as they're going to the floor, swipes it away. There was another one where he gets Saquon Barkley deep down the field. Late in that play, Bobby Wagner desperately chasing it down. Old man Bobby chasing down Saquon Barkley on a deep pass is able to stay with it. And as Barkley doesn't quite catch it cleanly going to ground, Bobby Wagner is able to get it out. The Washington defense made some big plays when if they hadn't, they wouldn't have had the opportunities to make those comebacks.
Yeah, that Wagner play was huge because Saquon kind of double clutched the catch, double caught it. If he catches that cleanly, even if Wagner breaks it up late, it's probably still a catch. He was laying on the ground for a little bit. So yeah, some huge plays by Washington's defense. Their linebackers in particular, Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, making some key plays. One last thing I wanted to highlight, if you go back and watch the Jayden Daniels game-winning touchdown, watch Milton Williams winning almost right off the snap for the Eagles. The timing, anticipation, and the fact that pressure was there, right? We talk a lot about how pressure is important, but if you're getting rid of the ball quickly, you can negate it. That's the other underrated part, and just an awesome job, I think, by Jayden Daniels, getting rid of the ball quickly to negate a pressure that is, right on him pretty quickly from Milton Williams up front from the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else on this one? Like I said earlier, Eagles fall a game behind the Vikings and the Lions. Their number 1 overall seed chances have dwindled quite a bit.
Yeah. Big game for Washington to win, to kind of not quite secure it, but basically secure that playoff spot. And a statement win that they can hang. The narrative coming out of the last time they played Philadelphia was, okay, this was a reminder of where the standard is, right? Philadelphia is a team chasing the 1 seed. You're chasing the playoffs. If you make the playoffs, you're going to have to play teams like Philadelphia if you want to progress and make a Super Bowl or whatever. Last time it was okay, you're not at that level yet. Philadelphia showed in the second half there's a gulf between those 2 teams. This time, okay, Kenny Pickett rather than Jalen Hurts, it's probably a different outcome, but still, Washington showed that they can go toe-to-toe with those 1 seed type teams.
When Kenny Pickett's at quarterback.
Whatever. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.